Hi students, in this section we will be talking about the tuples which are used in Python. But before we talk about tuple, थोड़े से features इसके हम पढ़ लेते हैं कि tuple exactly होता क्या है. So tuple is first of all, the most important feature is that it is an immutable data structure, क्योंकि हम इसको change नहीं कर सकते हैं. इसकी values हमने एक बार assign कर दी तो हम इसको change नहीं कर सकते हैं. ये भी data एक बहुत ही ऑर्गेनाइज फैशन में स्टोर करता है एंड इट कैन स्टोर मल्टीपल वैल्यूज ऑल्सो. इट अलाउज यू टू स्टोर मल्टीपल वैल्यूज ऑल्सो. ओके, सो हाउ मल्टीपल वैल्यू और हाउ अ डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ अ टपल एक्चुअली अकर्स, मैं आपको बेसिक से एग्जाम्पल इसका दूंगी. सो इफ आई हैव अ टपल टी एंड इफ आई से फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल टपल जो है वो स्टोर करता है राउंड ब्रैकेट के अंदर. ठीक है, सो अगर हमने अब यहाँ पे एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग फीचर है जो आपको याद रखनी है. इफ आई एम सेइंग इन अ राउंड ब्रैकेट, इफ आई जस्ट से 12 and I press enter. So children, just remember, it does not mean that I have created a tuple. It is not a tuple, it is an integer value. So if I just say t, you will see that I will only going to get 12 because it's just like sort of applying a bot mass with the bracket and all, and it is considering it as a an integer value. But to make it a tuple, I need to have the value inside it. And how am I supposed to initialize? Just put a comma after this. Now this is a tuple which has just one element in it. So when I try to say print t, so can you see now there is this round bracket that occurs. So basically tuple is a data structure which allows you to store the data within the round bracket, and it can have a single element in this particular manner. It can have multiple elements also, where if I say 34 comma 56, so it basically allows you to store more than one value together in a single variable. और इसीलिए कई बार रिक्वायरमेंट होती है हमारे पास प्रोग्राम की कि हम वैल्यूज जो स्टोर कर रहे हैं वो चेंजेस उसके अलाउ ना हो प्रोग्राम में. सो इसीलिए टपल बेसिकली यूज होता है ताकि आप वैल्यूज को स्टोर कर सको. आप एक सिंगल वैल्यू को भी स्टोर कर सको, आप मोर देन वन वैल्यू भी स्टोर कर सको, लेकिन उस वैल्यू को चेंजेस होना अलाउड नहीं हो. ओके, so basically आपका tuple is a data structure which allows you to store the data in the organized manner. अच्छा, इसमें हर एक value inside a tuple is called as the element. So जैसे 10 is first element. How am I supposed to access the first element? If I just say print, tell me what is the value for the first element, because हर एक element access होता है through the index number, where the counting of an index number starts from 0. So अगर मेरे पास पहली value है 10, I can access this using the index number 0. See how the index number is given. So if I just put that index number in a square bracket and I say print the value for this, I will get the answer 10. Similarly, if I'm trying to access T2, because now see, this is the 0th, this is the first element which is stored at the index number 0, this is the second element which is stored at the index number 1, and this is the third element which is stored at the index number 2. It goes in the consecutive order, इसलिए हम इसको बोलते हैं organized fashion में होता है. तो अगर हम इसको enter करेंगे तो 53 आएगा. All right, so always remember, just to have a quick revision of what we have just learned, it is an immutable data structure. It stores the data in the organized fashion because data store होता है locations में जो हम access कर सकते हैं through the memory index number. So the data which is stored in the tuple are called as elements, and each element can be accessed using the index number, just the way we have just now learned, where the value of the index number always starts from 0. बट ऑलवेज रिमेंबर कि ये जो हमारे टपल के अंदर की एलिमेंट्स हैं, दैट कैन फर्दर कंटेन any other thing. It can contain further a number. We can have a tuple which can further contain a list. We can have a tuple which can contain series of numbers. So again, tuple is not homogeneous. It is a heterogeneous data structure which can contain data of different types. And the most important thing, a tuple element is supposed to be stored within the round bracket. जैसे अभी हमने किया. Let's see quickly few examples of tuple. पहले एग्जाम्पल जैसे मैंने भी आपको एक एग्जाम्पल दिया था जिसमें हमारे इंटीजर वैल्यूज हैं 12, 45, 23, 56, 78. इसी तरह से इफ आई एम हैविंग अ टपल ऑफ स्ट्रिंग्स, so there are multiple strings that I'm having over there. Similarly, if I'm talking about floating point value, I can say a tuple of float values. Similarly, I can talk about the tuple of mixed values, because that's why we say that a tuple is nothing but a data structure which contains heterogeneous kind of data, which means any kind of data. And this is another example where it's a tuple of dictionary. So ये dictionary, ये इसका first element हो गया पूरा, ये सेकेंड एलिमेंट हो गया, ये थर्ड एलिमेंट हो गया. अब हमें इसको एक्सेस कैसे करना है ये हम सीखेंगे व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द नेस्टेड टपल. सिमिलरली दिस इज अ टपल ऑफ लिस्ट. ओके, so it's a tuple because it has multiple list elements, sub elements inside it, and we will going to talk about how to access that in the later part of the video. So and that's something which is the basic introduction about it. Now if I just have to tell you that how I'm supposed to access, declare a tuple and how I'm supposed to access the data, it's very simple. Just declare a tuple, have a value. First of all, I would like to show you that there is a tuple which does not have anything, जबकि इसका कोई significance नहीं है, but still मैं एक example आपके सामने लेके बता रही हूँ. Then I have T1. There is a tuple which has a value 10, 56, 45, 23. अब अगर हमारे को सीधा सीधा प्रिंट करना है T, so it will going to print that it's a blank tuple. अब इसके अंदर हम changes नहीं कर सकते हैं, because अगर आप element add करना चाहते हैं या delete करना चाहते हैं, delete तो होगा ही नहीं because element ही नहीं, लेकिन add भी नहीं कर सकते because tuple is immutable. Now when I'm saying tuple T1 should be printed, so when we are trying to execute the program, you can see that you have a blank tuple getting printed, you have another tuple. Now if I want to traverse each element from this iterable object, देखो iterable object क्या होता है, मैंने आपको पहले भी बताया था, I'm again revising. iterable object वो होता है जिसके पास एक से ज़्यादा वैल्यू होती है और हम हर वैल्यू के पास उसको उसकी वैल्यू को एक्सेस कर सकते हैं एक एक करके इन अ कंसेक्यूटिव ऑर्डर. दैट इज़ एन आइटरेबल ऑब्जेक्ट बिकॉज आइटरेशन एक लूप में अंदर चलती है. सो आई जस्ट गिव यू एन एग्जाम्पल. इफ आई से फॉर आई इन just say T1. Okay, so now the iteration is happening, or iteration is happening. As I just said, different people speak in a different manner. So we'll say print me the value for I, and now when I try to press F5, the first element of T1 is taken, stored in I, and we see the value 10. Similarly, the second value is taken, it is stored in I, and so on. Then the third, then the fourth, and then the fifth. That's one thing. Similarly, when you talk about strings, or you talk about another example, say for example, if I'm having something like school, if I'm just saying school, okay, and this is a string and it's nothing but a string, I would like to access each element, but right now it is not a tuple, it's a string. So you're supposed to remember that if I need to convert it into a tuple, it's very simple. Just say T1 is equal to, now you are recreating T1, and just say tuple of T1. So what will going to happen in this case is, if I'm just let me first initially print the value, you will see the change how it is getting printed. And when I'm pressing F5, can you see a tuple has been created from the elements of a string. Okay, so S becomes the first element, C becomes the second element, H becomes the third element, and so on. That's what you're supposed to remember. So the next thing that we need to know about tuple is, these are all interesting features. Then the next thing that we need to know in a tuple is, say if I'm having the first tuple T1 having values like 10, 20, 110. Okay, then there is another tuple T2 which is equal to having a value 6, 7, 8. Now I would like to see whether concatenation works with this concept or not. So concatenation does work with the objects, and in this, when we talk about this data structure, so if I say T1 plus T2, yes, the concatenation occurs, and when we press F5, we can see that now a new tuple has been created. It's a new tuple. We are not allowed to change the existing tuple, but आपने plus करके एक नया tuple ही create कर दिया. जिसकी वैल्यूज़ क्या हैं, जो T1 की एलिमेंट्स है दैट इज 10, 20, 110, और साथ में कॉन्कैटिनेट मतलब ऐड हो गई पीछे 6, 7 and 8. So now the length of the new tuple is 3 plus 3 6. अगर हम इसको T3 करते हैं is equal to T1 plus T2, and now I am trying to print T3. So एक नया tuple बना जिसका आंसर सेम है, but we will going to see that now a tuple has been created. So there are 3 tuples right now which we are using in this program called T1, T2, and the third one is created from T1 and T2. So concatenation is definitely possible in a tuple, but remember when we talk about concatenation, it has to be a tuple and tuple. It cannot be a tuple and an integer, which means if I'm trying to say that I have T4 is equal to 90, which is an integer value, and now if I'm trying to say T3 should be T1 plus T4. Okay, now you try to execute, you will see an error in that case. It's a type error because you cannot concatenate an integer to a tuple. Always concatenation is possible with a tuple and another tuple. So if we do a quick revision of what we have just learned, we'll talk about the traversal. We can traverse to every element in a tuple just the way we know now, we've already done. So if there is a tuple L with values 12, 13, 56, 78 and 16, we can access each value like this, and this will be the output that we will going to get. Similarly, if I have a string and if I would like to convert that into a tuple, it's a very simple manner. You will going to just use a tuple function. It will going to convert and traverse through this iterable object, which is nothing but T, and then you keep on accessing it and keep on finding it out that whether it is existing or it is not existing, and you will going to get the answer. Similarly, if I'm talking about the first operation called as concatenation, will concatenation going to occur between two tuples? Absolutely yes. So if my first tuple is 12, 13, the second is 56, 78, 18, my third one will be adding or just putting the element of the second tuple immediately after the first one. Similarly, when we know that it's a heterogeneous collection, but yes, two tuples can always be added, this is a second example. But remember, I told you a tuple can only be concatenated with a tuple, not with anything else. So that's again important. So this will going to generate a type error. Once we are done with concatenation, the other operation that we should know is repetition. That means, can I repeat my values in a tuple? So let us see that very quickly. So if I have a tuple, let's talk about a tuple T1. If I'm saying print T1 multiply with 3, which means you are trying to repeat T1 how many times? 3 times. 3 times when you're trying to print. Will you see the answer? See, 10, 20 and 110 is repeated how many times? 3 times. Therefore, the total number of elements have increased from 3 to 9, which means it creates another tuple, which means if I'm trying to say let T2 is equal to T1 into 3, that means इसको कितनी बार वो एक के बाद एक रिपीट कर देगा? 3 बार रिपीट कर देगा, and finally your answer will be a tuple. So when I say this, and if I am just printing the value of T2, my answer will just be the same. That's what you're supposed to remember in a tuple. Okay, so there is no difference. The answer remains absolutely same. So let's see that in the second case of repetition, yes, if I'm having a tuple, always remember with repetition, it's a tuple multiplied with an integer value. But when it is concatenation, it's one tuple added to another tuple. That's supposed to be always remembered. Similarly, in this repetition also, अगर आपके पास दो tuple हैं, लेकिन इसमें एग्जाम्पल प्रिंट स्टेटमेंट में टपल इनटू एन इंटीजर है, तो आपका आंसर डेफिनेटली आएगा. लेकिन अगर आप दो टपल्स को आपस में मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे तो आपका आंसर एरर आएगा, बिकॉज टाइप एरर है. टपल कैन ओनली बी मल्टीप्लाइड विद एन इंटीजर value. The third type of operation which is very much possible is the membership operator. ना हमें पता है, देखिए दो membership operators हैं, in और not in. Okay. So membership operator से हम basically we can find out using a particular condition that a particular element is existing in a tuple or not. So suppose if I have a tuple and मैंने t2 को t1 की वैल्यू से t2 क्रिएट करा है, so we know what is t2. If I just say for I in t2, okay, so in that case I need to know whether a particular number is existing. I suppose I need to know whether a number 20 is existing or not. So I'll just say that if t, no, because I is 20 number is what I'm looking for, so I can say that if 20 in, and I'm talking about the value of t2, so if that is existing I'll just say print yes. अब देखो इसका आंसर कोई बहुत मतलब ये कोई स्मार्ट क्वेश्चन नहीं है, ये एक बड़ा स्टूपिड सा क्वेश्चन है, बट सिर्फ मैंने आपको एक इन ऑपरेटर बताने के लिए यूज़ किया है कि इन ऑपरेटर इज़ बेसिकली यूज टू नो वेदर अ पर्टिकुलर एलिमेंट, इसमें जबकि फॉर लूप की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है, ठीक है। लेकिन हम फिर भी देख लेते हैं कि कितनी बार हमारा आंसर जो है आएगा और क्या आएगा। देखो कितनी बार यस आता है 20, क्योंकि हर बार चाहे वो ट्रैवर्स करे एक एक वैल्यू, लेकिन वो सर्च आई में नहीं कर रहा, वो सर्च t2 में कर रहा है, तो जितने भी नंबर ऑफ एलिमेंट्स हैं उतनी बार यस दिखाएगा। अब इसी प्रोग्राम को अगर मैं फॉर लूप के अकॉर्डिंगली हम लोग हटा देते हैं यहाँ पे, तो अब हम चेक करते हैं कि इज माई number 20 existing in t2. So a membership operator is basically used to know or used to tell whether a particular number is existing or not. Just the way it works with the other objects, it works with the tuple also. Okay, so in and not in are the two membership operators. As we know, if I need to search for a number a in the list L, I can just use a simple if-else statement and I can find out whether a number is present or not. Similarly, in not in, if you are accepting a character and you are checking whether it is not existing in S, then it might be a vowel. So suppose your character that you've entered is D. So D is very much present. That means this condition will be false, because this condition says D not in S, but it is in S. Alright, therefore it will going to print present. But in the second case, if the character is A, you will see the answer, it might be a vowel. So I hope the introductory part about the tuple is very much clear to you. So if you have any doubts, do write under the comment section and keep watching for the consecutive videos so that the concept of tuple is very much clear to all of you. So have a lovely day, children, and if you like the video, don't forget to press the like button, share and subscribe.